Meet Pramod. He's young, highly extroverted, and living a comfortable, fast-paced life with his parents in the city of Pune. His baseline reality is built entirely on logic, concrete, and the predictable rhythms of modern civilization. But Pramod's family originally hailed from a tiny, remote village deep in the Konkan region of Maharashtra. When he decides to visit his grandparents there, he trades the predictability of the city for an isolated landscape where dense forests and ancient traditions dictate the rules of life. 2 days into his trip, Pramod notices an intense shift in the village. The locals, usually slow and deliberate, are working at a frantic speed. They are rushing through their chores and locking themselves inside their homes well before dark. It is Amavasya, the night of the new moon. When he asks his grandfather what's going on, he learns the rigid laws of the village. On an Amavasya night, no one steps outside. Everyone sleeps early. And if you hear voices or knocks at your door after dark, you absolutely ignore them. According to local lore, a terrifying entity, a Chudail, wanders the area seeking out victims. In a village this small and disconnected, the rules aren't suggestions. When every neighbor is rushing to lock their doors at the same hour, the shared fear becomes a physical barrier. Logic doesn't apply here because the environment has already dictated a different set of survival mechanics. Pramod's reaction is exactly what you would expect from someone raised on concrete and smartphones. He laughs it off. He tells his grandfather that witches aren't real, and the entire village is hiding from ghost stories. A few nights later, as another new moon approaches, he makes his critical error. Sitting on the back porch looking out at the dark fields, he speaks to the night. He loudly declares that he wants to experience this entity for himself, challenging whatever is out there to prove him wrong. In the architecture of supernatural horror, extreme arrogance is the ultimate catalyst. By treating centuries-old warnings as a punchline, Pramod strips away his only defense, actively inviting the darkness in. It's now roughly 2:30 in the morning. The village is completely silent, strictly observing the Amavasya curfew. Pramod is fast asleep in his first-floor bedroom, having forgotten all about his little challenge. Suddenly, a violent barrage of knocking slams against his door. Heavy, powerful, and impossibly fast. It jolts him wide awake, his heart racing in the dark. Grabbing a heavy bamboo stick, he marches to the door. The aggressive pounding continues, right up until the precise fraction of a second. He swings it open. And there is absolutely no one there. No footsteps retreating, just an empty, pitch-black hallway. Rather than securing the room, a sudden, suffocating wave of dread washes over him. Needing air, he makes the irrational choice to leave the relative safety of the house entirely, walking out the back door into the open courtyard. He sits down in the cool night breeze and makes his second fatal mistake. Trying to calm his nerves, he pulls out his old mobile phone, puts on his headphones, and starts watching a movie, entirely muting his auditory awareness of the isolated environment around him. Immersing yourself in a screen creates a localized, artificial safety zone. It convinces the brain you are isolated in a digital world, intentionally blinding you to the immediate physical threats closing in right behind you. A few minutes into his movie, Pramod senses movement in his peripheral vision. He pauses the video and looks up. Just 15 steps away from his property sits the village's communal stone well, and walking purposefully toward it is the figure of a woman. He sits frozen, watching her draw the heavy bucket up the shaft. Without hesitating, she lifts the freezing water and dumps it directly over her own head. Then she does it again, and again, at 3 in the morning. As he strains his eyes in the moonlight, an uncanny detail begins to register. He can't make out a single facial feature. Her entire face is completely obscured by a heavy, wet mass of thick, dark hair. Before his mind can process the logic of what he's seeing, the situation violently escalates. The woman leans forward, the edge of her sari catching the air, and she plummets head first directly into the black mouth of the well. Driven by a terrified compulsion to see what just happened, he rips the headphones out of his ears. He leaves the phone on the ground and creeps slowly toward the masonry, peering over the edge into the abyss. Instead of a drowned body at the bottom, he sees her. The woman is pressed flat against the vertical masonry, crawling rapidly up the sheer, wet stone walls toward him like an enormous insect. Her eyes are rolled entirely back into her skull. A grotesque, unnatural smile is stretched across her face, and the dark shaft echoes with the wet slaps of her hands hitting the stone as she scrambles up to grab him. The horror of that moment is rooted in the impossible. A human-shaped figure should not be able to scale wet, vertical stone with the speed of an insect. The sight of it overrides the brain's understanding of how a living body is supposed to move. The adrenaline finally breaks his paralysis. Pramod spins around and sprints blindly across the dirt, slamming the heavy wooden door shut behind him and screaming for his grandfather. By dawn, the entire house is awake, and the village elders have taken over. The community immediately steps in, orchestrating intense cleansing rituals and prayers to strip away the spiritual contamination of his encounter. His parents arrive from Pune to find a son who is no longer interested in debunking village superstitions. The extroverted, logical boy who arrived weeks ago has been replaced by someone who now understands why his grandfather keeps the doors locked at sunset. Pramod realizes that the night's events were sequential. The knocking, the empty hall, and the figure at the well were precise reactions to his own voice. He called into the darkness, and the darkness provided a specific, tailored demonstration in response. The real terror of the Konkan village remains with him long after he leaves. He learned that the unknown is more than a passive mystery. When a skeptic mocks the silence, he risks discovering that the silence is actually listening, and it is capable of answering back.